You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good morning. My name is George Haggerty, and before I call this meeting to order, I'll note for the record that I will serve as chair for today's meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York Energy Finance Development Corporation for Monday, March 24th, 2025. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast, and we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda. I will also note for the record that the public has been given the opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting their written comments to esd@esd.ny.gov by 5 p.m. on Friday, March 21st, 2025, and no comments were received from the public concerning today's agenda items. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to today's agenda items. If so, please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote in regard to the item. Hearing none, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of August 15th, 2024. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Motion. Second.
Okay. So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. I would like now to ask Matthew Bray to present the next item on today's agenda, a request for authorization to adopt guidelines for commodity and interest rate derivative transactions and to take related actions. Matt, when you're ready, please begin.
Thank you. Good morning, directors. As part of bond transactions, the
corporation may enter into interest rate and commodity derivatives for the purpose of hedging interest and/or commodity price risk related to those transactions. To ensure all interest rate and commodity derivative transactions entered into meet legal requirements, transaction goals, and cost and security objectives, staff recommends the adoption of the guidelines for commodity and interest rate derivative transactions. The guidelines require that for every swap transaction, the corporation evaluate counterparty risk, termination risk, rollover risk, basis risk, tax event risk, and amortization risk. The guidelines also set forth the requirements and procedures to ensure compliance with the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, the process for the selection of counterparties, and the selection and ongoing requirements of swap advisors. In accordance with the resolution, you are hereby requested to adopt the guidelines for commodity and interest rate derivatives transactions. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. As noted earlier, we did not receive any comments from the public on this item. Are there any questions or comments from the directors with regard to the item? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. I would now like to ask Matthew to present the third and final item on today's agenda, a request to, among other things, authorize the corporation to perform certain acts in connection with the sale and delivery of the New York Energy Finance Development Corporation of its Energy Supply Revenue Bonds Series 2025. Matthew, when you're ready, please begin.
Thank you. The board is being asked to approve the operative provisions, sale terms, bond purchase agreement, related documents, and related actions in connection with the sale and delivery of the corporation consisting of, but not limited to, its Energy Supply Revenue Bonds Series 2025. The Power Authority of the State of New York has requested the corporation issue bonds to finance the prepayment of the acquisition of a long-term supply of electricity, which will result in a net savings to NYPA. The corporation will issue the bonds under a trust indenture between it and the trustee and will use the proceeds of the bonds to make a lump sum prepayment to the electricity supplier. Proceeds of the bonds will also be used to fund capitalized interest, fund certain reserves under the indenture, and pay costs of issuance. The corporation will contract to sell all the electricity supplied to NYPA under a power supply contract, pursuant to which NYPA will agree to make monthly payments for the supply. The electricity supplier will enter into 2 sale and service agreements with J. Aaron and Company, LLC, pursuant to which J. Aaron will agree to procure the electricity supply. The transaction is structured to allow J. Aaron to procure either market energy or accept assignments from NYPA of certain power purchase agreements. The electricity supplier will also use substantially all the prepayment to make a loan or deposit to Goldman Sachs or a third party under a funding agreement, which will be amortized in scheduled monthly payments to provide the supplier with amounts sufficient to meet its payment obligations. The corporation will delegate substantially all of its operational requirements to NYPA pursuant to an operational services agreement. The obligations delegated to NYPA include the obligation to schedule deliveries of the electric supply and to direct the electricity supplier to remarket portions of the supply to third parties when required. The bonds will initially be issued in a fixed interest rate mode for a period less than the full term and will be subject to mandatory tender for purchase at a date established upon pricing, but estimated to be 5 to 10 years from issuance. The bonds will be issued and secured under the indenture. The bonds are special limited revenue obligations of the corporation and are not payable from or secured by any property of the corporation other than the trust estate. The bonds are not a debt of the State of New York or the New York Job Development Authority, the New York State Urban Development Corporation, nor any other local development corporation, agency, or authority of the state, and none of these entities shall be liable on the bonds. The trust estate pledged under the indenture consists of the proceeds of the sale of the bonds, the corporation's right, title, and interest in and to the NYPA supply contract, the right of the corporation to receive certain revenues from sale of electricity supply to NYPA, the right to receive payments from the electricity supplier's remarketing sales to third parties to the extent NYPA does not require or cannot take a portion of the supply, the right to receive certain other payments from the electricity supplier under the prepaid agreements and amounts held under certain funds and accounts of the indenture. NYPA's payment obligations under the power supply contract will not be general obligations of NYPA. The risk to bondholders associated with non-payment by NYPA will be mitigated by certain reserve funds to be held under the indenture and funded with proceeds of the bonds. The requirements of the electricity supplier to purchase certain of the corporation's receivables associated with any non-payment by NYPA. The electricity supplier's obligations under the prepaid agreements will be supported by J. Aaron, as well as its right to receive monthly payments under the funding agreement. J. Aaron's payment obligations will be guaranteed by Goldman Sachs. The corporation will enter into a commodity swap under which the corporation will pay the counterparty a floating market price for the electricity supply received from NYPA, and the counterparty will pay the corporation a fixed price corresponding to the fixed debt service payments on the bonds. The corporation's obligations under the commodity swap will be limited obligations secured only by the corporation's rights to the trust estate. The electricity supplier will enter into a mirroring commodity swap where it will make fixed payments to and will receive floating payments from the counterparty. Corporation and the electricity supplier will each enter into custodial agreements with the counterparty and the trustee, which will mitigate the risk to bondholders associated with non-payment by the counterparty. As part of the transaction, the corporation has caused to be prepared a preliminary official statement and will cause to be prepared an official statement to be used in connection with the issuance and sale of the bonds, and will enter into a bond purchase agreement by and among the corporation and Goldman Sachs for the sale by the corporation and purchased by the underwriter of the bonds. The corporation is being asked to delegate authority to its officers to approve the maturities, prices, yields, and other terms of the bonds, which are expected to be issued as tax exempt. In accordance with the resolution, you are hereby requested to approve the terms and authorize the sale of the bonds, approve the form and content of the bond purchase agreement and various other documents connected with the sale and delivery of the bonds, and to authorize certain officers and employees of the corporation to take all actions deemed necessary to accomplish the final sale and delivery of the bonds. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. As noted earlier, we did not receive any comments from the public on this item. Are there any questions or comments from directors with regard to the item? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. There being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you everyone for your participation in today's meeting.
Thank you.